today we're going to talk about tools. Yay, tools! Okay, so I'm going to blow through this because I did another tools video and it just got really long and cumbersome. So today I'm just going to try to blow through these a little bit quicker. There is also a project sheet at the end, a handout that you can download that has a list of the tools that I would recommend. So if you think this goes too fast, either shoot me a question or just look on the tools list when you go shopping. Another note that I will make is that I don't mean to promote one brand name above any others. I have the ones that I like because they have the features that I like in the product, not necessarily the brand name. A lot of times, you know what, I just kind of look for the features that I like and buy the one that's on sale. And don't want you to get intimidated by the number of tools that I bring up because a lot of them are not expensive and well worth the couple dollars that they cost. Also, I want you to remember what we talked about in how fabrics are bundled, about how if you think, oh, if I buy pre-cut, then I won't need all these tools. So we might want to review that before you eliminate some of these tools off your shopping list. Okay, so the first thing, of course, on our shopping list is the cutting mat. I recommend one that is 36 inches wide, this 1 yard of fabric, and then at least 24 inches deep. And that would be, you know, your regular quilting fabric folded in half. 1 full yard would fit on the mat. And then, of course, your rulers. Now, this is my favorite ruler, and it's 24 inches by 6.5. When I go over, there's a whole episode I'm going to do about how to use the rotary cutter, and I get into the rulers a little bit more about why I like this particular size, and also how to use it. But this is the one I would invest in first, okay? Also, your rotary cutter. And again, in the rotary cutting video, we'll go over the features of this, of why I like this rotary cutter the best. So when you're talking about cutting materials, also you need a good pair of scissors. Get them with a locking mechanism and get them with the flat surface on the bottom. These are for fabric only, I mean anally for fabric only, okay? Quilters and people who work with fabric are real serious about that. You don't necessarily need these, but they're one of my favorite scissors ever. They're just little snippies, and they're really good for getting in those tight little areas. When you use these big snippies, you're more at risk for actually cutting fabric than with these. These are definitely worth the investment. Good pair of tweezers. If you have a machine that, you know, just push the button and it threads itself, you may not need these right away, but I do use these a lot. And a seam ripper. One of the best things you can do as a quilter is to get over the fact that if you have to rip a seam, that means you've failed or you've made a mistake. I rip seams a lot. I probably have 6 of these around my quilting room. I use them a lot. So make sure you get a seam ripper, at least one seam ripper. I think they're, you know, like less than $2. And here's another ruler that I use a lot. So this little thing, I like it because it has this sliding mechanism. With the sliding mechanism, you don't even really have to measure. So let's say you want to know what the depth of this is. You just, you know, line up one end at the one end you want, slide this over to the end, and then everything else you have to match up, you just line up to the little blue plastic thing. You don't even have to know what the number is. You just use it to line it up. I use this a lot, and I think, again, it was probably less than $2. Masking tape. I use this for a large number of things in my room. I use it to mark fabric. I use it, you'll see when we talk about, again, about the rotary cutting video, how to use the rotary cutter. There's another use for masking tape. Cheap, and I use it a lot. A pen. Lots of notes on your patterns, and sometimes you can even use this for marking. Another pen, this is a chalk marker that I use, and we get to more about how to use the chalk marker and why when we talk about the quilting video and how to put the 3 layers together. Pins. Now remember, pins and needles are not the same thing. Pins are just a pokey end, right? Needles have the hole in the end that you can stick the thread through. You can sew with a needle, but you can't sew with a pin. You just hold things together. The other pins I have in my sewing room are big, long corsage pins. And I use these when I'm quilting the 3 layers together and putting the 3 layers before you start stitching. And I go over that in the quilting video too. A couple of other things you're going to need in your sewing room are Band-Aids. Nobody wants blood on their fabric. One other thing that is helpful in your sewing room is a good clock. Sewing also requires a lot of ironing, so make sure that you invest in a good iron. Now, when I say invest in a good iron, I don't mean that you have to spend hundreds of dollars. You can go to fabric stores or craft stores and see irons for over $100. Personally, I've never bought one for over $100, but I do invest money. I don't buy the $5 kind either. So invest in one that has good steam that comes out of it and is a little bit heavier, because when you're pressing your fabric, you're going to want that weight. Spray starch is also a good thing to have handy in your sewing room, because a lot of times we need this to help the fabric remember where we wanted it to go instead of where it actually went. And a good spray bottle. This is good to use with just plain water to help your fabric lay down flatter. And it's also good to scare the cats away when they're getting in the middle of something you don't want them in. So talking about tools, there are a few that I would suggest that you wait on. Some things that, you know, you may feel compelled, like, oh, that's really cool. But, you know, then again, they're probably not things that you need in the beginning. So a couple of them I would like to mention are this little handy dandy thing. It's a really cute little ruler, 2.5-inch squares. I thought it was cool. I thought I'd use it a lot. Never once have. This is another thing that I thought was really cool. It's a measuring gauge, and each side, like this is 1 1/4 inch, this is 1/2 inch, this is 1 inch, this is 5/8 inch. I thought it'd be really cool. Never once used it. Some other things that I thought were really cool are the directional pins. What I use instead is masking tape, and for example, I'll put numbers on them, like the row number and then the block number. So if it's supposed to go in the first row, and it's the third block from the left, I'll put 1-3, and I put it always up in the top left-hand corner. And that way I know exactly which direction the block is supposed to be, where's the top of the block, and then which row and which number column it's supposed to be in. And then at the end you just rip off the little pieces of tape and throw them away. Cheap and easy. Another thing that I thought was cool when I first started was these project bags that they have, and basically they're just Ziploc baggies or grocery store bags. You can also buy like the brown paper bags that your children use for school lunches. Another really cool thing to have is a design board, and you'll find these at quilt festivals or quilt stores, and they're just big, huge pieces of, you know, like felt fabric that you put on the wall, or some come with frames. If I were you, I would just use your batting that you're going to use sometime for your quilt, and your fabric will stick to that just the same. And also then you can like roll it up, lay all your quilt squares out and just roll it up until you're ready to work on it later. The other thing I've never owned, believe it or not, is a pair of pinking shears. So you'll see a lot of pre-cut fabrics in the store that have been cut with pinking shears, and may think that you might need pinking shears too. Honestly, I've never owned a pair. But I have owned some of the cutest cats in the world. So, you know, I can go without pinking shears for my cats, right?